Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second installment of the Paid in Green Peppers podcast. My name is Patrick Hite, and this is my good buddy
Shane Aden.
Yes, Shane Aden, my partner in crime. And today we're going to be reviewing a movie that many of you have probably never heard of, unless you're just a hardcore B-movie aficionado. And this movie is called Zaat, Z-A-A-T. And it's from 1971, and it has actually been released over the years as Hydra on VHS. That was the VHS title. A second, not to be confusing, but a second VHS title under the Elvira VHS collection. It was called Attack of the Swamp Creatures. And actually, I believe the U.S. television title was the Blood Waters of Dr. Z. Z, I'm assuming, standing for Zaat, even though that's not actually the doctor's name.
And you may actually recognize it also because, being original, we're also doing this, but Mystery Science Theater 3000 did this before us.
They did, which actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Shane, because it actually sort of brought this somewhat forgotten film back.
Not forgotten, buried.
Buried, probably for the better in some people's views. But Mystery Science Theater actually kind of rekindled an interest in this film to a lot of people. People that had
mental problems?
Mental problems. Only after watching the film did they have the mental problems. But now people that had either seen the film as a kid, read about it in a magazine or something, which is kind of where I first discovered it. I think it was Monsters of the Movies magazine, and it was, I don't know, whenever it came out, late 70s or something like that. And it was actually under the title The Blood Waters of Dr. Z. They had this totally cool graphic of the monster holding this huge syringe, which we will address here later because I found this monstrously huge syringe just ridiculous. But anyway, this graphic in this article, I was just like, wow, this monster looks amazing. Just the Blood Waters of Dr. Z. It sounds so cool. I always wanted to see it.
And we all know that advertising always is truthful, and the movies always live up to the advertising pictures.
I've never seen one that didn't. Just like
I read. Watch this movie is what you're saying.
Well, no, I watched the film. Let's be fair. I wouldn't review something I didn't watch.
You'd be better off if you did review it without watching it.
Well, it's kind of like the internet. Anything you read online is true, right?
I don't know how to read.
It's just like you're better off.
Okay.
If you have a computer and you're Googling and you don't know how to read, well,
I just hit random.
Hats off to you, sir.
Random letters and things pop up, and then I chat like a monkey.
You chat. That's better than what I just go to Google Images and type in some random things and see what pops up, and then I say that looks fun.
You better have a good blocker, a good filter if you're doing that kind of stuff, everybody.
I've got all kinds of protection on my computer, so it's all good. But anyway, the movie. What did you think of this film? First of all, before we really get into the premise and the absurdity and the fascination that is Zaat, what do you think?
Overall impressions is that it makes me long for the editing skills of Catman.
Catman. For those of you who don't know, but you should check out our pilot episode, Catman in Lethal Tracks, because that is something altogether different than this. But
on the internet, it's supposed to be rated one of the worst movies ever, and I think it's overrating it.
Right.
Not Catman, this. I don't think Catman actually qualifies as a movie, but this is, yes. This is, when you're watching this, driving down the highway and hoping that you get in a traffic accident so you don't have to watch it anymore, that's not a good thing.
First of all, why are you watching this while driving down the highway? I think there could be some legalities there that are, you know what I'm saying? You're supposed to know these things.
I know a good lawyer.
Okay, well, then that's why. You can just watch anything you want.
Sure,
you can just
exactly.
binge watch television programs while cruising down the road and drinking coffee and eating a sandwich and taking a nap.
And juggling kittens.
Juggling kittens.
Like Pig Eye Jackson.
Pig Eye Jackson. Elaborate, please. Pig Eye Jackson.
Steve Martin's nom de plume in The Jerk when he was playing the juggler.
Oh, okay. It's been a while since I saw The Jerk, but I highly recommend that film. Not that that has anything to do with what we're talking about, but...
Well, I've seen The Jerk recently. I'm sitting across from him now.
Touche. Nice hat, by the way. I like that hat. You look very svelte today, by the way. Just wanted you to know that. I'm sitting next to a very handsome gentleman. If anybody want to Google this man, you probably won't find any images except the one on our paid in Green Pepper intro, which sort of a Blake Shelton wearing a sombrero. He loves it when I call him that.
Yeah, a fat Blake Shelton is kind of what I've been called. A short, fat Blake Shelton. If you took Blake Shelton, who's like 6'4", and compressed him to 5'9", but kept all the weight, and then made him fat, yeah, that's me. With a sombrero.
With a sombrero.
On a stick.
And sometimes a kilt.
There you go.
So if you get... Okay, you might want to get...
Can we talk about the movie?
Okay.
Can I just get this over with? Can I erase this from my memory? You know, I'm just trying to get through this podcast so I can go home, hit the tequila, and erase this from my mind.
Well, I didn't hate the movie nearly as much as you did. I had seen it...
I don't think anyone hates anything as much as I hate this movie.
Well, that's why we're here.
I mean, Hitler liked Jews more than I like this movie.
We're kind of the yin and yang, and that's sort of what this is all about. So, first of all, I didn't hate this movie at all. I like B movies. I like simple movies that I can look at and say, "Wow, I probably could have done this."
We did do
myself,
this.
and we did do this. Yes,
the fight scenes.
Scenes, yeah. So I guess let's jump on in here.
Please.
The movie.
I just want to get this over with and then go home and cry.
Well, let's talk about the title Zaat, first of all. That, if you don't know, is the, whatever you call it, what would it be, the chemical makeup of this particular formula that this madman is using?
Right. And if you have the misfortune to watch the movie, they talk about this man who's an unknown doctor discovered two new elements, Z sub A, and then A sub T, or whatever it was.
Right. There was some
and rather than getting him the Nobel Prize in chemistry, he became an unknown. Okay. But if you combine these things, it creates mutations.
Yeah, and he was sort of accurate, right? I mean...
Well, here's the problem, is when you're talking about mutations, they're never good.
That's kind of what
And I'm not talking about in just these movies. I'm talking about in nature. If you have a mutated, that means you have like a four-winged fruit fly, which can't fly, or you have something with its stomach born outside of its body, or mutations aren't good. You don't inject yourself with this and then become a really bad fish creature.
Right, yeah.
If you need to call us a fish creature, it didn't even look like a fish.
No, it didn't. Which I don't know if you caught this. When the scientist... First of all, the scientist takes this syringe out, right? And how long is this syringe? It's like 8 inches long, the needle on this thing or something?
And either it's just used for the effect, or in the 1970s, they didn't know how to make small syringes. I'm not sure. But think of what you used to see on the Three Stooges. Those used, the doink, oh! That's what this was. Meanwhile, did you notice that the guy playing the scientist never actually utters a word out loud?
He does not. His entire dialogue is a mental narrative, and I don't know why, because he was a scientist. Apparently he could communicate, verbally, I mean.
But, I guess it makes more sense, as there's no one there, why would you be talking out loud?
I guess he would him and his fish, right?
Right.
That's pretty much, he surrounded himself with all sorts of aquatic creatures, including a pet octopus, which he does actually reach in and pet at some point.
He sleeps with the fishes.
He sleeps with the fishes. So I guess that explains the narrative. Because I was going to mention that. I didn't quite understand the point of it, but you're right. He's alone. So why would he be speaking? That would make him crazy.
And then when he turned into the monster, he didn't really have a mouth that moved.
Right. That's true.
Just sort of sat there.
It just sat there, and he still talked in his head. And all that stuff. So did you notice the fact that when the scientist, he gets the formula, he goes through this good 5-minute spiel of all this scientific mumbo jumbo, which none of it really made sense to me, but it sounded cool in a film.
Right.
And then he pulls out this syringe, which looks like you would actually use to murder someone.
Sure.
Like a super dagger. But it's got just a minuscule amount of fluid in it. So he injects himself sort of in the arm. The needle just sort of waves against the skin, and we're left to assume he's injected himself. Anyway, then he begins to strip. He pulls his shirt off, revealing his pale, doughy, skin.
Brad Pitt in Fight Club, this guy is not.
Not even close. And the actor, which is kind of interesting, he looked to me like an old Robin Taylor, the gentleman that plays on Gotham, plays the Penguin. He had his hair, was kind of messed up, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like Robin Taylor in about 40 more years after he had snapped.
And a lot of hard drinking.
A lot of hard drinking.
I mean, if Robin Lord Taylor went on a bender with Gary Busey for the next 40 years, this is what he would look like.
Yeah, I agree. This guy, it was just, but it added to his mystique. So he pulls his shirt off, he staggers around a bit longer, like, what am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm going to get in this gigantic pool of, I guess, Zat chemicals, mixed with the chemicals that he injected in himself. So then he starts to pull his trousers off and his loafers, and he's got these boxers on. They're sort of askew, the band is flipped over. It's just a train wreck, really. But he climbs up into this gurney, like you would lift someone up into a helicopter or whatever.
And takes forever to get himself, lower himself into this vat of water.
It takes a good amount of time.
And it's really not even like a vat. It's just like the world's dirtiest hot tub.
It
bubbles. He's put something in there.
It doesn't look sanitary.
And then it takes forever for him. I don't know if these people ever heard of editing for time, where you can just sort of imply that he gets into the gurney, and you hit someone pull a rope, and then you see him swing out, and then you see him drop in. But it takes a good 6-7 hours for this guy to get pulled over. It's a really long film. And it's just, I mean, it should have had an intermission like Gone with the Wind. But I mean, it just goes on forever, and he straps himself in to no effect because the strap is so loose that I don't even understand why you strap yourself in.
Yeah, why would he strap himself in? I can see a helpless victim, but why would you strap yourself in when you have every intention of transforming yourself into this mutated creature?
Why even get into
the gurney? Why not just dive in? Just dive right into that thing.
Didn't he climb out of it, or did he pull himself up on the gurney?
He actually lowers himself in the gurney, still wearing his boxers.
Comes out
and about 5 seconds later, boom, he's the monster, and he comes swimming through this little side hatch and climbs out over the side.
So he could have just jumped in.
He could, literally just stepped in like you said, a hot tub and just submerged himself. But he had to go through all the complex, I don't know if that's foreshadowing, because he does this later when he has his victims and brings them back to his lair, and he lowers them down in the same tedious process. So maybe it was a bit of
tedious.
I don't know, but it was pointless. But anyway, something else I noticed that, like I say, it took about 10 seconds for the transformation to occur. We never see a transformation. We just literally see him go in, and then the monster come out with no boxer shorts on.
Yeah, the monster, which obviously designed by Rick Baker in his early career.
No, I don't think so.
This is in essence what looks like a scuba suit with gunk glued onto it.
It really did.
One of the most awkward masks I've ever seen.
It almost resembled. Which I find interesting. It almost resembled like the snout of an aardvark or some sort of elephant type something or other with teeth at the bottom. But what I found interesting was when he walks by a mirror, he looks in the mirror and says something to the effect of,
"Nothing like the catfish, but beautiful."
Perfect. You nailed it. I was hoping you would nail it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so I like that is a perfect quote for this film.
Yeah, it's nothing like a catfish. That's the perfect quote for this film. It is nothing like a catfish.
Nothing like a catfish.
Catfish are useful.
Yeah, because and the significance of the catfish is he's doing experiments on this aquatic life, trying to mutate it. And apparently in the 70s, which I don't remember this film actually was made in 1970, released in 71. That's a ways back. But apparently in that time period, there was this fascination with these walking catfish. They called it the walking catfish phenomena of that era. So do you know much about that?
Yeah, I actually do remember about the walking catfish. In the 1970s, there's an invasive species from Africa, and when they say walking catfish, it's not really what you think. What it means is these catfish could live out of water for a couple of days without going back into water, and they're really not so much walking as sort of flopping around like the goldfish from the Faith No More video. But because they're long and skinny, they're making more progress and just sort of flopping around and everything. And yes, it was a huge, massive concern. I don't know why, because you know what would take care of every problem with these walking catfish?
What's that?
A riding lawnmower.
They didn't think of that in the movie, though.
They're a foot long. What damage could they do other than they die halfway through the yard and stink? Okay.
That's true.
Or drives your dogs crazy. Oh, it barked. Oh, kick the dog. Shut up. And, right over with the riding lawnmower, fertilize your lawn, get on with your life. So that was the danger and terror of the walking catfish, which was a common trope in the 70s that the animal life is coming to get us. If you recall, killer bees, fire ants.
Yeah, there were a lot of those type of themes in films back then.
Yeah.
Insects rebelling, animals rebelling.
Right.
Against,
Day of the Animals, which is another film unto itself, and all these other things. But now that we don't care about that, now it's all global warming, climate change,
exactly,
whatever else.
Well, I for one am glad the horrifying catfish have left us alone, because I don't feel like walking out stepping on one of these things, sliding, sort of like a living banana peel.
Basically, yeah, that would be the biggest thing if you stepped on one and slipped.
Because in the film they act like it's this huge, these animals are mutating, and one thing about this film, if you notice, every couple of minutes, especially when you're seeing the scientist about doing his menacing work or whatever he's really up to, they intertwine clips, just random stock footage of fish and shrimp and octopus.
Utterly random. It has nothing to do with what is going on at all. You have, for whatever reason, a shrimp molting, shedding its old shell, interspliced with nothing. I don't know why. It makes no sense. And, just fish swimming around, or a turtle biting something, and it makes no sense.
It made no sense. I guess that was supposed to represent maybe... I don't know what it was supposed to represent, honestly. His friends. That was his
bad load of cocaine is what this represented.
Yeah, it was weird. And I mean, there's one scene where there's literally the monster is standing in maybe a foot of water. His mission is he's got a spray bottle, much like you would buy in any cleaning section of any department or any
kind of
store,
stuff
Walmart or whatever.
You spray at your dog when he's on the couch. Down,
right, like get down. So he's got this thing loaded with this Zat formula, and his plan is to go to the local waterways, which of course connect to the sea and this and that, and spray it randomly on fish and frogs and sticks and bones and whatever he comes across, because this is supposed to create these natural mutants, mutate nature, so that for some reason he's going to use these. I guess that's his plan anyway, to take over. He says actually to take over the universe, rule the universe. He as a fish man,
because fish are well-known interstellar travelers.
Exactly right. And I don't know. I never saw any evidence of the fish actually mutating. Did you?
Well, there was one scene, and it was a very small thing, but they had at one point one of the walking catfish, or just a regular catfish, they had dry landed and was letting them suffocate. I'm not sure,
which is probably the case.
Thrashing about. And they had a teeny tiny, really badly made wooden fence made out of
I saw that.
Toothpicks or something like that, and it kicked over the fence because it's like something from a Lego playset or something like that, and it was always convincing.
So were we supposed to believe that the fish was just large, or the fence was really tiny, or what was this? That scene, I remember that scene.
That was a scene that they had filmed and just spliced in there. Originally, the catfish were supposed to have mutated into huge things, and the whole plan was to have them, wreaking havoc in little model towns.
Oh, okay.
But the test footage, as you saw, when you throw a live catfish on what amounts to like a railroad model level, home, where you had the little cows and you had the little tiny plants. I mean, just terrible.
So the miniature work really didn't jive with the live fish.
They only did one scene because, it worked so well, they threw it in there because why not?
Because they spent the money to film it, or they didn't. They filmed it regardless. The film was already paid.
I don't know how much they spent on anything. I think it was $75,000. What is it? This whole film
was $75,000,
and I think most of that went to bad peyote.
I thought maybe guest craft services, whatever. I don't know, but
Well, they have fish.
tuna and crackers on a daily basis. But I do remember one quote now that you explained that scene, because I really didn't make the connection, although I do remember the tiny fins.
You need to get bigger.
Exactly. He's talking to this fish as he throws it out.
But no, he pulls it out of this tank and starts talking to it like, well, not talking to it, just this little thought process.
Thinking to it somewhat. I don't know what that is.
It's just,
telepathy.
Whatever scientific name. You only get 18 inches. You need to get bigger. He puts it back in the water.
And then the fish just goes about its business of being a fish.
Defecates and tries to eat something.
Right. I think it ate its own... or whatever. Anyway.
Children. It ate its own children.
I feel sorry for the fish in this movie because... I don't know, he would just put them out there, like the one scene, he puts it out there and just lets it squirm about for a few minutes, and then he scoops it back up, puts it back up. I don't know. It seemed a little weird to me, but...
Just a little. Okay.
I guess, those were his companions. He was playing with them or socializing or whatever. They had scientists that have turned themselves into some sort of fish creatures do. But, anyway, I guess we should sort of explain... We've explained the premise of what he's up to, but there were other parts of this film, such as the agents that show up later in the film. I've got it written down. In Pit, this Winnebago pulling some sort of amphibious go-kart
right
thingy.
The same Winnebago that Billy Batson and Mentor rode around in on the Croft Super Show Shazam hour.
That kind of thing.
Apparently in the 70s, just what you did. You got a Winnebago and you just rode around and somehow lived.
Yeah, it must be nice. It must be nice to be able to do that, huh?
And I can see that you're doing that now. If your car, your food stamp card is electronically charged every month. But then, you have an address to get your food stamps because if you're not working, you're just driving around in the Winnebago.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So,
Sure,
whatever works. So these guys show up.
Yeah, Dirk Benedict.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that same kind of hair.
Ugly Dirk Benedict from Battlestar Galactica.
Right.
And generic blonde girl.
Right, exactly. And In Pit, I never could really... Did they explain what In Pit stood for? I couldn't find any information
I don't
on
recall.
what it actually... if it really stood for anything.
I don't think it did.
All I know is it was flashy, it was bright red with a really awesome logo emblazoned on the side of it.
And they come out in the same jumpsuits that the prisoners wear when they come to court.
Right, with the In Pit logo on that.
Right.
And that's the only time you ever see that, because every other scene with them in it, they're just wearing normal clothing.
Right.
So that's sort of weird. But the whole point of these guys showing up is because... Earlier on in the film, there is a scientist who is friends with the local sheriff. Who
I don't know if they call him friends.
Well, they sort of bicker a lot, almost like I don't know what you would call them.
It's like he hated him as this little racist sheriff guy.
Yeah.
And he just kept referring to this black guy. Boy.
I noticed that he called him boy like every scene.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it seemed to be his only friend, with the exception of his deputy, and I don't even know if...
the deputy was in half of a scene, and not even a full scene.
Nah, not much of a scene.
And that guy looked like he was on meth. Just
right.
He weighed like 6 pounds and had 4 teeth growing out of his ear. I don't even. Yeah, it was not good. But the scientist is doing all these tests, and for whatever reason, the sheriff is just sitting there on the beach in this chair. I don't know why you're doing this, boy. And just, boy this, boy that.
To which he says, I'm just doing my job. In his defense, I'm just doing my job,
Why does the sheriff need to be there? Is this some sort of bodyguard work?
Well, did you really ever see the sheriff do any sheriff work? He's literally loafing in every scene, hassling the scientist.
Hassling the scientist, shooting an empty gun, and beloved by his constituency. If you recall... yellow belly, and you drop the N-word bomb for absolutely no reason. Love her too,
yeah, right. I thought, was that even necessary?
Billy Jack would not approve.
No. So that was sort of just thrown in there.
That's what this movie needed. Was a half-breed Navajo kung fu guy to come in and kick the
monster.
Yeah, we need a
sheriff, either one.
We need a crossover between Billy Jack and Zaat. That's what the sequel needs to be.
That would have been awesome. Which brings me to an interesting point I dug up. Sadly, let me say first of all, the guy that made this film,
yes,
it was
sadly he made this film. That is a very sad point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, well, thanks, folks. This is Peyton Green Pepper.
Right, I hope you enjoyed this. No, what I was going to say, actually the writer, director, producer, Don Barton, who later went on to become actually very well known in Florida as a documentary filmmaker. He did local commercial spots, and apparently he had done some other films later on which got worldwide recognition at some film festivals and things. But this particular film was so beloved to him that he was actually going to do a sequel. But I think before he was able to complete it, he passed away in 2013. But it was going to be called Darn Monster. It was going to be a 40 years later sequel spoof to this film.
Spoof.
Well, that's the way he described it.
This movie's a spoof of itself.
I agree, but
Darn Monster. What's he going to be doing? Wearing repaired socks?
I think maybe so.
Maybe that's a reference because apparently during the filming of this atrocity, the scuba suit kept falling apart, and they kept having to patch it over by the end of the 30 days. Let's not rush this. For 30 days, apparently the suit was so heavy, the guy who was 6'5" could barely even walk in it.
Sounds like a miserable gig, especially when you're trouncing about in mud and water. And there's one particular scene where he comes out, because this guy literally swims everywhere. You can tell certain scenes, like when he's underwater, it's supposed to be sort of an homage to the creature from the Black Lagoon, except the difference is Rico Browning in the creature suit swam very gracefully, much like a human fish, whereas this guy just sort of struggles just to not drown. I think
that's really good to give the visual on a podcast or some of the audio.
For those, I'm thrashing my arms and feet about. You can't see that, but but watch the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to.
Another huge difference is, let's just talk about the design of the suit.
Let's do that.
The creature from the Black Lagoon, the creature. When they designed the suit, they had the forethought to make long fingers with big, thick webbing for to paddle with, and big feet to paddle with. And what this suit was just a green rubber suit with no webbing whatsoever.
Right.
One of the most awkwardly designed head masks I've ever seen of any creature.
Huge.
And this guy who's swimming, I don't know if they got him from the YMCA in beginner's class, or if this suit was just something to make a person drown and he had to be an Olympic level swimmer to just survive standing in the water. I'm not sure, but it has all the grace of like a drunken hippo trying to mate with a dachshund. It's not good. It's
not good. And there are several scenes, because this guy, what he does is he gets in the water, skulks around, pops his head up. Like when you see a turtle in a pond, it pops its head up and kind of checks everything out. Well, this is what he does. He spies on people. There's one scene where he's spying on the sheriff and the scientist for no real reason. Another scene where he's popping up and there's this lady camping, and she's an artist. She's got her easel out. So he's spying on her and her dog. He decides later that, hey, I'm going to take this woman when I get a chance, because her dog's barking right now. When I get the opening to grab her, I'm going to take her back to my lab and create what I'm assuming is he wants to make a fish mate for himself.
Well, it's certainly not for me.
Not for me either. No. Not a huge fan of fish. Some, Long John Silver's, but anyway.
Lightly battered and deep fried. It's not bad.
Oh, yeah. It's all in the preparation with fish. And the seasoning. And it can't be too fishy. You got to get... You know what I'm saying? Sometimes
what is it about fish that you don't want it to actually taste like itself? That's how horrible fish is to eat. That you don't want it to taste like fish.
You want it to taste like
anything but fish.
Quite the opposite of the way fish really tastes and smells. So anyway, the monster, he has a tendency to be in... I think you may have mentioned this already. He's in his lab one second, the next minute he's stumbling about the woods clumsily, and then he's in the water, and he pops up, and he's randomly spying on people. He spies on the sheriff and the scientist... who, the scientist is testing the water, who discovers later that it is full of radioactivity pollution.
In your language, pollution.
Yes, in the sheriff's language, pollution. That language, I'm assuming, is English, much like the same language the scientist is speaking. But he was being a wise guy.
How stupid of a sheriff do you have to be when you don't understand there's a lot of radiation in this water? What's that mean? In your language, pollution.
Right. Is this guy... This guy does not realize that radiation is maybe a negative thing. I don't know.
He hung out with Stan Lee too much. He was hoping to maybe turn into a superhero.
Maybe Maybe I can become a super sheriff at some point. So anyway, he's spying on this guy. He pops up, like much like a turtle looking out of a pond at people. He's gone again. That didn't do anything. He swims around some more, pops up, sees a girl painting a picture. She's got a tent set up, this one of these hippie artist type girls, I suppose. But she has a dog. The dog's, I think, barking or something. So he sort of backs off and goes back.
Well, I mean, if you look at the review or write up on that, you see that, but it's not clear as that's what happened when you actually watch the movie,
right?
Because that's all. Half of this movie is just literally footage of him doing nothing, footage of this guy in the suit popping his head up out of the water and then going back down.
Right.
Footage of this guy swimming clumsily through the water. Footage of this guy walking around, bumping into things, tripping over palm fronds, and almost killing himself. That is, I'm not joking when I say 40% of this movie is just pictures of this guy doing nothing.
But if you think about it, he's half fish now, so perhaps he's doing what any other fish would be doing, just sort of randomly swimming about eating insects off the bottom of the water, and then when he gets bored with that, he spies on potential victims and mates and things of that nature.
I don't know. I'm not sure why.
I'm not sure either, because I do agree with you. He does
I'm assuming that this guy spent 17 minutes writing the entire script and was like, oh crap, this only took 4 minutes to film. Quick, film this guy swimming.
Right, and deem them as action shots.
And speaking of swimming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I believe that we've covered previously the horrendous inability of him to swim.
Yeah, he couldn't really, yeah.
But here's the other thing.
It was more like thrashing.
And comparing it to the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Right.
The creature... The guy who played the creature, what was his
Rico
name?
Browning, in the water.
In the water.
Rico Browning.
Was an amazing swimmer and was able to hold his breath for multiple minutes.
Right.
And so despite, when you think the big hump on his back contained the scuba tank, no, it didn't because there's no bubbles. The guy was holding his breath. Not so in this case.
No.
Because you see many times when this guy's underwater, bubbles coming out of his head.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize the person's head leaked that much air. I've got some clients that I thought might if I dunked them underwater, and I'm quite willing to try it. But no, there's just sort of air coming out of his head,
right?
Because the guy is just going to drown if he doesn't have some sort of air supply.
And if you're going to drown in a monster suit, this would be the one because this thing is so clumsily put together. I don't hate the design. I've actually seen movies where the monsters look worse than this, but to call this a cool-looking fish man, not so much. Maybe just some alien from space or something.
It looks a lot more like an alien. I think that they tried to incorporate some fish designs in it, some fins, some algae, but this big, long anteater snout with the leech mouth on the end.
Yeah.
Now and again, I don't know why I did research on this other than I'm just a masochist.
Because you do your homework. You're a very thorough.
Yeah. So the leech mouth was supposed to suck the blood, which he only did out of one.
He did that in one scene for some reason. I guess that was
to satisfy some biological need. Or urge,
yeah.
According to the scientist who knows all about a monster.
Right, because those are natural. Those exist in nature.
I did have my degree from monsterology.
Right. Yeah, he did. There's a scene, the scene that Shane's referring to is there are these two teenagers making out on a porch.
As teenagers are wont to do.
Right. The mom says, off screen, hey, I'm going somewhere. I don't know.
Take good care of her.
Yeah, and he says, oh, I will. I'm sure you will. It's one of these,
It's a double entendre.
Hilarious.
Oh,
not really. But anyway, so they're sitting there, and she's like, oh, aren't you scared? And of course the brave teenage man, boy, whatever he looks like a man. So, oh, I'm not scared. I don't believe in that stuff. And then, of course, the monster shows up.
And at which point he wets
sort
himself
of mauls
and gets
the
killed.
guy, and as he's laying there on the porch covered in blood, the monster...
No, not covered in blood.
Well, let's be fair.
Covered in...
Maybe a cup of blood?
No, covered in what can generously be described as a little bit of water with some red food coloring splashed on him.
Right.
I mean, there is the one scene where the shirt was already pre-cut, which you can see because the editing
clean.
Is so fantastic.
Right.
So they got it already cut there, and the guy moves his hand across. The hand, which you see very well, just has no claws or anything sharp on it.
Yeah.
And somehow rips this shirt just one spot instead of 5. And then someone above that squirted a syringe full of red goo.
Yeah.
Out of this wound, not even coming from the cut of the shirt.
clearly coming from elsewhere. Yeah, and then as he lays there, either unconscious or already dead, I don't know, the monster leans over clumsily once again,
falls over in a drunken rage. Just to be honest.
And touches the tip of its elongated mouth to the bloody spot on his chest.
Well, and I'm really hoping that was the first take, and he didn't miss and hit a little lower the first few times.
Because in that mask, who knows?
That might have been the porn parody Zatt with an X, Z-A-T-T.
Coming soon to a theater near you.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Oh, I see what you did there. That was good.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's some sort of... I guess he's got a leech quality to him as well. Maybe that is why he has this elongated
that was
face.
also after he got stabbed by the guy and went to take medicine. And the medicine...
another fantastic
which he drinks
scene.
For no reason. He drinks a bunch of medicine and acts like it made him drunk.
Right, he grabs his head and he's all woozy and stumbling
what
about.
Medicine does
What
this?
did he drink?
Jack Daniels, Jim Beam.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Because it was in a refrigerator.
Glenfiddich.
Right.
He broke into the Jameson.
Because he's been... Let's set this up. He's been stabbed by... Was it the sheriff that stabbed him? No, it was... Or one of the scientists.
It was Dirk Van Dyke Jr.'s ugly brother.
Right. The in-pit agent stabs him because they've stretched this net out across this waterway. I don't know why this particular spot they decided to set this up, but it's a trap to catch the monster, which they do, and this makes the monster mad, so he leaps up. Well, I wouldn't say leaps. He makes his way up on the land slowly.
He flops out of the water, like a walrus having a seizure.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. And then he attacks the agent, and the agent stabs him. And of course, he's like,
meanwhile, the helper scientist, the first one who was there, he's doing so much. He's taking pictures. He's the freaking paparazzi.
He's taking pictures of the monster.
They got a 7-foot-tall green algae-covered thing, and is attacking this guy with fantabulous hair. He's attacking this guy, and this guy's struggling for his life with his 4-inch knife. Whoa, so terrifying.
Right.
He's like poking at this guy, and what's that guy do? Oh, hold still, click. Hold still, click. And taking pictures, which they have developed. And what's the comment? Oh my God, this is a whole new species. Oh my God, this is going to revolutionize scientists. Oh my God, this is going to do everything. Whole new branch of evolutionary. No, he sure photographs ugly too.
Yeah.
Oh my.
That was the comment.
That's the comment.
This was
and the pictures that were taken were not the pictures that the pictures were developed. Not the pictures taken, because the pictures that were taken would have had Dirk Van Dyke Jr.'s ugly brother, punking at him with a knife or throwing himself down in a clumsy way to facilitate some sort of fight. And also, there's no zoom on those old 1970s.
And it was nighttime.
Well, the flash was going off, which is
why
I
suppose that's true. Yeah, that's true.
But the pictures look like Charlie Sheen trying to run away from the paparazzi after he got told he was going to have AIDS. He was holding his head. It's not attacking.
They were quite obviously posed shots for the film, which is, I understand that.
And I'm thinking if I got a picture or something like that, I mean, that's like having, a picture of Sasquatch. I'm calling the National Enquirer. I'm calling something. This
but not these guys.
No,
they keep it to themselves in this little small town.
Let's not call anybody or do anything. Let's not even call the Weekly World News and give them something. No.
Why would you want to do that?
Dear God, no. Let's just rubbery suit man attacks dude. I don't.
So anyway, after he is stabbed, he
gets medicine.
He staggers through the streets for like 5 minutes, right? Like this abandoned frontage area of a town, which I don't know what time it is. Everybody's gone.
Well, I'm coming from a small town. That at 8 o'clock everyone
they're in bed.
Rolls up.
It's night time for the folks.
But I mean, complete with the staggering, lurching, grabbing his side with the internal dialogue of ooh. He's even thinking, ooh. They don't even make the monster go. No.
He just literally is thinking.
Thinking. Oh.
Yeah, he's thinking this.
Oh, I've been stabbed. Not, oh, expletive deleted. I'm bleeding out. Not, oh, I can really use a sandwich right now. Just, ooh.
Yeah. Interesting.
Interesting's one word for it.
So he does come across the closed up, only for the evening, because it is after 8 o'clock, as Shane stated. He breaks down the door, the drugstore, the pharmacy.
Oh, and
staggers about. It's like
a packed pharmacy it is.
Did you notice that every building in this movie, from the lab to the pharmacy to the sheriff's office, they all had like an aqua green paint? Everything matched.
What I noticed was this: that the set design of 1970s Doctor Who was so much better. I mean, literally, it was like 3 shelves and a couple of refrigerators with locks that had not been locked, and yet the man slapping these things clumsily could not
with his rubber
break
hand.
the lock.
Yeah.
And so he's just flopping around and drinks the potion.
The unknown liquid in this refrigerated bottle. We don't know what it is. They never show a close-up of the bottle. We don't know what it is.
It's booze, and he's an angry drunk because he drinks it all down.
That does make sense.
He drinks it down, he holds his head, he gets mad, and starts smashing everything. I've got friends who do this.
Do fish instantly get drunk? If you give fish a bottle of bourbon, would they instantly grab their head with their fins and start waving around? Because this took about 5 seconds.
Given the fact that fish don't have anything to grab their head, no.
Well, they would attempt to, much like a T-Rex scratching their forehead or something. Anyway, whatever he drank, it was supposed to alleviate the pain and heal him, maybe? I don't know. All it did was seem like I said it made him mad. He became
an angry drunk.
Angry.
He's an angry drunk and knocked over everything.
Throwing a fit, essentially.
Right. Yeah, when he does it, he's a terrifying monster. When I do it, I have some sort of social problem. Fine.
It's not really fair, is it?
No, it's not.
Now, if you did it in a really shoddy wetsuit, maybe you'd get away with it.
Well, if I pee myself, everything I wear is wet. Anyway.
Oh.
There's no wetsuit. Hey.
So anyway, after he does this, I think, do we go back to the camping girl? This is before he kidnaps the camping girl, right?
Then he goes to kidnap the camping girl.
Okay.
And then he takes her back to the lab.
Yeah. Puts her on the gurney. And then we see that
whole... No, this is after the camping.
Okay, that actually takes place after.
Yeah, so he kills the camping... Well, he takes her...
Injects her.
Puts
her on the gurney.
Yeah, she comes out slightly green.
Yeah, because what happens... I figured this out later is... He's got this... Just like any lab in these old movies, they've got a million colored light bulbs flashing randomly. And this particular panel has a sign on it in what appears to be masking tape written in a Sharpie that says warning circuit. It just says warning circuit on it. I don't know what that means. But anyway, when she gets lowered into the vat of chemicals to turn her into the fish, this warning circuit thing malfunctions or something. So I don't know what exactly that is doing to the water. Is it sending a current through it? Or I don't know what's going on. But I
don't think the writer knew either.
I don't think so either, because they pull her out of the water because she's thrashing around and then she stops and he pulls her out. She has these patches of green. It's supposed to be sort of fish skin, maybe. I don't know.
Assume she only halfway transformed. But here's the thing. She's strapped in and you dunk her in. And she comes out dead.
Yeah.
Now, I'm wondering why, because a person who's being strapped into a gurney and dunked into freezing water, oh no, then I gotta go, and completely die right there before
instantaneously.
It's not like him who knew he was going to transform and was prepared, maybe held his breath going in. This woman gets dropped in some sort of filth bubbling liquid.
Yeah.
Actually, I wonder why she died. I'm not quite frankly sure that it was fate that she died. Have you ever seen this actress again? I haven't.
No,
I think someone needs to open up an investigation on this person to see if they're dead, and if they're not dead, to prosecute them for staying alive after being in this movie. What do you think?
What do I think about the fact that she died in the water, you mean?
Well, either she's dead or she's alive, and if she's alive, she should be prosecuted. But as I said, I think, you look at he dissolved a fish in acid and dropped this person in this acid.
He literally, I guess he was testing the acid to see how potent it was going to be, because he does carry the body in there, throws it in, and it starts smoking and gurgling and blah, blah, blah.
But he loves sea life so much, he tests on a live fish. A live fish. Now, this is a real live fish. It's, struggling for air, just doesn't want to die. He dips it in this acid, and it comes out completely dissolved. And then,
So that's how he treats his friends.
For someone who really loves sea life, he's not being very nice.
No, because he...
No ASPA certification on this film.
Right, so I'm led to believe that the fact that this woman has never appeared in another film, at least according to the information I could dig up, we may have solved a crime here.
We witnessed a snuff film is what we've done.
We've just witnessed a snuff film and solved a crime in the process, but the director, writer, producer, sadly, is no longer with us.
You say sadly. I suppose so in the human sense. Sadly.
Sadly.
I guess it's my Christian duty to say, yes, sadly, he is dead.
He's not around to pay for his crimes against this actress.
Crimes against my eyeballs for filming this crap. That's what he needs to pay for.
Well,
I demand restitution.
That too.
I need compensation. I paid nothing to watch this film on YouTube, and I overpaid.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. I cannot argue with that point. So after he dissolves this woman in this vat of acid, guess what? He removes her picture from the Mayan calendar / knife throwing mechanism,
Right,
and decides it's time to find another, replacement.
And as we talked about earlier, draws another picture of the woman who's supposed to be the girl from, was it IDOT?
InPit, which we still don't know what that stands for.
Sure. So the woman from IHOP.
She works at IHOP.
Yeah, she works at IHOP. So draws supposedly, but the woman from IHOP has got a huge, massive blonde hair, and this girl who he's drawing has a huge, massive black hair. And again, I believe, like I said, it looks a lot like Sissy Spacek playing Loretta Lynn in Coal Miner's Daughter.
I can see that because this hair was huge. It had a life of its own, according to this monstrous rendition.
Oh.
He did draw rather well with these claw-like rubbery hands, though.
But with the right hand this time. But he'd been writing everything left-handed
But
previously.
we have established he's ambidextrous because now he's a fish.
Because he's a fish.
And that's one of the gifts of becoming a half-man, half-fish.
It is.
You
It
can do
really
things
is.
with both sides.
And that was Leonardo da Vinci's secret.
Is that what it was?
Yes, it was.
Maybe he was half
That
fish.
beard covered his gills.
Ooh. Getting into some conspiracy theory stuff today, folks, on Paid in Green Peppers. All right. You can thank us later. We'll set up a Patreon or something. Yeah, we can take care of us like that. So anyway, he sets his sights on this blonde InPit agent to replace the
IHOP waitress.
Yeah, right. But before he does that, let's backtrack just a minute. One of the reasons that I think this guy has gone crazy and decided to take over the world by becoming this fish thing is because he had some colleagues that he was working with previously that had basically told him he was a nut. You know, you can't use this formula.
Not even telling him no, it wasn't even that, because they have the internal dialogue, and even in his memories, it's like, well, I can authorize you to get some more mice and rats, but not a human guinea pig. A rational thing to say if you're if you're not Dr. Mengele. You know, it's a rational thing to say. I don't think maybe we should try to put this on people.
We should not test this on humans. Right. Which I think that's fair.
And apparently this made him mad, and now he has to kill every human and turn them into a fish.
Yeah, and he starts off by murdering these two colleagues of his, or I guess they were upper echelon, whatever you want to call them.
The bosses.
They were the bosses.
They wouldn't let him experiment on people.
So he threw a fit 30 years later, or whatever this is, and decides to kill him.
Worth every minute, if I recall. That was the...
Worth every minute.
40 years of suffering and worth every minute. Okay, sure, why not?
And I had actually read somewhere where he was supposed to have actually been a Nazi scientist. I don't know where that information came from, because I didn't get that from the film. And no one had an accent. So I think that just could be speculation.
Well, I mean, it's in the write-up, which has much more information than the movie ever gives you.
Yeah.
You know, former Nazi scientist, and yet he graduates from MIT in the late 1930s.
Right, so how does that work? Maybe they recruited him? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Then suddenly, I don't
if
know.
If he was a Nazi scientist, you'd think he had been happy over there completely, because they were like, oh, human guinea pigs? We got some. Goldstein, get over here. No,
Right, we got plenty to choose from. But no, that didn't, so I don't know, but... So anyway, he has photos. He actually has photographs of these victims. The other ones he draws.
The glossy 8x10 actor photos kind of stuff.
Right,
you know?
they were headshots, right. And he kills one on a fishing boat with his family. He actually kills the scientist.
And his son.
And his son. The wife sort of survives. I think she's in the hospital later.
Well,
probably in shock or something.
It looks like he slaps at her, and she just sort of lays there.
Yeah. Because I actually thought she was dead. Me too.
And then, the next scene, the sheriff's like, talking to the people. There's someone saying something. Oh, she's in shock. Shock? She's supposed to be dead, I thought.
Yeah.
And why would he stop? Just because she just laid there. Is he like is he like a bear that if you play dead, he'll leave you alone? Like, you're no longer a threat. I'll just, gnaw on you a little bit with my little tube fish and then go away.
Right. So she survives. What good it did her, I have no idea.
She was not in the rest of the movie.
She was not. Still in shock, I'm assuming, from being in the movie, perhaps. And then,
another crime.
Right. So then he magically
call The Hague.
So then, of course, we have another shot where he's magically back in his lair because we don't want to see him stumbling around any longer than we have to. And he puts an X through the photo like, ha ha, this has succeeded. Now I'm going to go to this other colleague of mine who also said something not so nice to me.
Right, and this guy is, and I know that I do this all the time. When I go home and living alone, I turn on the TV and I grab a fishing rod and just play the fishing rod for absolutely no freaking reason whatsoever.
In a lounge chair.
Clickety, 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 clickety. Clickety, 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 clickety. You're just winding up the little thing. Clickety, clickety.
Yeah.
And then the guy comes up and strangles him, and it takes like 2 seconds to strangle, and he's dead, and there's no fight.
No, he just walks, and he doesn't really break into the guy's home.
He's
It's
open the door.
He just slides the door up and walks right in and just kills the guy, and pretty uneventful.
In the 1970s, people were not worried about security.
I guess not. I mean,
maybe this was the turning point where people saw this movie and like, oh man, we need to start locking our doors.
We should probably install a latch.
Lest a giant fish monster guy walk into our house and strangle us.
Because we live close to a waterway, and this could happen.
It could.
Worst case scenario, you get all these walking catfish in your living room.
You don't want walking catfish or flopping catfish, really.
Yeah, because there's even one scene where they talk about the catfish coming in and,
they're driving her dog crazy.
right.
Give your dog a tranquilizer or a shot of whatever the hell that monster was drinking. I'm not sure. Sure to make him an angry drunk, but have you ever seen an angry drunk dog? Sure, they're small. It's kind of funny. Ain't nothing sadder than a drunk baby. I'm just saying that, but let's leave the other alone. Next.
Right, exactly. So that was I don't know, the underlying theme, because it pops its head up a few times, is, those pesky catfish getting in people's living rooms, and,
And they intersplice fish flopping on the ground as if that's to terrify somebody.
Yeah, and these are they look like fish. They just look like a catfish out of water, like struggling to survive.
That's what the walking
There's one
catfish
scene where they're
is.
actually crossing a highway. Remember that scene?
Well, they're flopping across the highway.
Flopping. Well, yeah, they're not like jogging.
And again, these
they're
things only get about 18 inches long. They're very largest. They're about a foot long.
Yeah.
And it's a good fillet-sized catfish. And, if they're walking catfish, that makes life a lot easier. You go out to your backyard, you pick up some catfish, you scale them right there and there, drop them in the fryer, you're happy, you're done. You don't even have to go get them out of the water anymore.
And you raised a valid point. This is a fishing community. They're right by the water. Everybody seems to have a fishing pole. These fish are coming to you. You don't have to work. This is a free, literally free food.
This is
every
manna.
single
This
day.
is manna from the water.
Right, exactly.
This is what this is.
But they take it for granted. We don't want it. We don't want
the catfish.
We want to work for our catfish. We want to have to throw a pole out there, sit in 100-degree weather and sweat for it.
It's the 1970s. Everyone was on cocaine. That was the problem. That explains the fashion.
The fashion in this film.
And the music.
Obviously. The music, which I'm glad you brought that up.
God, why did I bring that up?
You brought up an interesting point. There is a scene, and I know we're all over the place with this film, but you're going to have to watch this film for yourself anyway.
Even if you watched the film, it wouldn't make any more sense than we're talking right now.
Right.
We could jump from beginning to end. You could literally just take this, go on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Right.
And just scroll randomly, and it'll make as much sense if you watch the whole thing in order.
Right.
Just do yourself a favor. Take some acid first. It might make more sense then.
It might. It might not.
I haven't seen anything being this disjointed since I watched Pink Floyd's The Wall without knowing what in the world that movie was about. That was just the most disjointed crap I've ever seen, and this is worse.
I'm not going to argue with you. You're kind of right. Yet I don't know this movie. I like this movie a lot. And there are several people that really, really, really like this film. And I think it's because of its absurdity and its simplicity, its cheapness.
I think you, the guy who made it, and his mother.
Rest in peace, by the way. And his mother, which I'm sure she's probably long since.
Well, given the fact that he was 120 years old and, when he made this movie in 1971, I'm sure Mama wasn't kicking her.
No, she probably would have talked him out of it. But no, back to
she loved him.
Well,
maybe that's why he made this movie.
Mamas love their babies. She might have encouraged him.
My mother didn't love me. I'll make a movie.
Yeah, about a fish, which
has all sorts of implications.
So maybe, if you think about it, maybe this guy was putting himself in this film. Maybe that was sort of like his way of dealing with society by saying, I'm going to treat myself, by making this film, without actually killing people in the real world. I'll make a film about what I would like to do to people in the guise of a fish. You think it was sort of a therapy thing he was doing?
I think it was the cocaine.
You're probably right. Cocaine has been the cause of many a
Cocaine.
a great man's fall.
Cocaine, I think, is the same for everything in the 70s, and given that this was in the 70s, and weed would make you too lazy to make this movie. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the god-awful hippie
the
scene.
musical scene, and I'm
God.
sure before we get to this musical scene, there's multiple scenes, once again, of stock footage of various animals in the water
weird noises.
doing things. An octopus, which...
Never gets out of his tank.
Yeah, things like that. So anyway, there's the sheriff.
I love fish so much, I'm going to keep them confined in a 2x2 space.
So they can be miserable.
And never clean the tank, because it looks like someone took a diuretic dump in the middle of
Those tanks were not... Yeah, they were not real clean.
I mean, again, 70s, we weren't really concerned about the whole lot of stuff. You know?
They're just fish. They'll be okay. They live in dirty water anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We don't care about that.
So the sheriff gets a call, if I'm not mistaken, to check out this school. There's some sort of disturbance or something. He heard the scream. Okay.
And he went to go check it out.
And it turns out it's really a band of hippies in like a love circle with a guy with and actually there's the hippie guy that's playing the guitar is the guy that did the theme song and several other songs, I think, for the film.
And went on to have a stupendous musical career of obscurity. Right. As well deserved it was.
That's right. So the sheriff walks in, expecting the worst, probably expecting the monster.
And just a bunch of screaming, drugged-out kids screaming.
Yeah, and he sees them there screaming because they're enjoying this simple hippie, countryfied, whatever you call that kind of folk music. And he just sits back and sits down and just sits there and he's enjoying the music.
Because if nothing is more real than an old sheriff in the early 1970s in the South loving hippies.
Right. But apparently
they did not take nightsticks and just beat the absolute snot out of them. No one ever said anything like, you better get a haircut or a dog collar to these kids. No one ever said that in real life. The sheriffs loved hippies. Like, oh, what's that? Illicit drugs? Oh, it's all right, fine. What's that? You haven't bathed in 6 weeks? Hey, you smell great. Come on in. No. If this was reality, he would have come in there and said, oh, you're hippies. He would have shot them.
Guns a-blazing,
because it was the South, and you could do that sort of thing in the South. Those were the good old days when you could just shoot hippies with impunity.
Right.
That's all I want. I don't want a whole lot else out of life. I just want to be able to shoot hippies and hipsters with impunity.
Right. You could, because them peace-loving hippies was asking for it.
Exactly.
That was the mentality.
You like peace now? I'm shooting you. Do you want to fight back? No. Okay.
Rest in peace. That was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
But for some reason, this guy dug it. He was like chilling with the music. And then the next thing you know, they are walking down the street, almost like a parade led by the hippie, singing these songs through the town in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Accompanied by the sheriff behind them with one of the hippies sitting on the hood of his police vehicle, and he's just casually corralling them to the police station where he locks them in a cell for their own safety for the evening.
And everybody's, yay! I don't recall being very happy or seeing anyone very happy about being locked in. If you're putting somebody in the jail for protection,
sure. Do
you actually have to lock them in? Or you can just say, hey, hang out here outside of the bars.
Right, and if something occurs, you can run in there, shut the bars to protect yourself. But they literally lock these guys up. There's no bathroom. There's nothing to drink, eat. Just the hippies and their guitar, man, and they're safe.
Yeah. So they're in this jail cell, and one guy still got his flute, and the guy still got his guitar, and apparently he has a natural reverb in his vocal cords. I guess there's some sort of cybernetic implant. He just hits that one note and sings the last couple words of that song. And it's just this big long note. It's all reverb and stuff like that. And everyone's happy and there's no bathroom. I guess they're going to take a dump in the guitar and make it sound better. I'm not sure. I just want this to be over. And thank God it's almost over. Can we skip? Please, can we just skip to the part? We all know what's going to happen. He kidnaps the other blonde girl.
Right, he does.
And then the other people go to the rescue. Dirk Benedict Jr.'s ugly little brother runs around with a Geiger counter just pointing it randomly. He went this way. Really? Oh, that's fantastic. You know that. And he's riding on the side of this old, I don't even know what kind of car this was. Some sort of Jeep hybrid something.
It had like six wheels.
No. I'm talking about the sheriff's car.
Oh, the sheriff's car.
So he's riding on the side of that. Now, you don't see that anymore.
No,
in the 70s, again,
that's illegal. Very dangerous.
We used to ride in the back of trucks back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And
it was fun.
Yeah, it was. And so he's just hanging at the door and pointing this randomly, turn this way, turn that way. then getting off and walking across the creek for no apparent reason when the people just drive around to the other side and pick him up. I mean...
right. It didn't make any sense.
Why?
Why make him walk through the water?
He jumped out, I don't know.
Yeah, he was very ambitious.
So they eventually find out that the creature has gone to the IHOP waitress's vacation home because they're no longer staying in the Winnebago. And then he kidnaps her and he's flopping her across the swamp. And everybody's chasing. And then there comes like the one interesting part about this movie. I mean, it's actually interesting. Is this guy is you know, he gets in what used to be the little 6-wheeled amphibious vehicles, and they were, you know, they had these things, and the concept was it was sort of like an ATV, and it was all terrain, and so you could drive these into the water and go. Of course, the design flaw in that is that that set too low in the water. For the tires were supposed to be the propellant, but all the tires are in the water the entire way. They're pushing and pulling at the same time, so you're not gonna go anywhere. So that was a stupid concept for
Poorly designed.
And so the Dirk Benedict is in this, and he's riding through the swamp till it just stops for no reason.
It goes like 3 feet, and then it's like...
And then he gives it
I should have stayed on.
He gives it a dirty look and runs off, pulls out a giant gun, which he didn't put in there. I really just
Let's just have it in there.
Keep a 30-06 in the 6-wheel vehicle not locked up at all, because it's the 70s. No one's on cocaine.
Everything's safe, right.
So, and then he starts trekking through the swamp without the Geiger counter. So now he doesn't know actually where he's going, yet he knows how to find this monster. Meanwhile, the sheriff and the black scientist from before are now at the lab, and they're looking around and making brilliant observations like, looks like a generator. Okay, fantastic. I'm so glad you went to engineering school for that crap. And then, but again, here's the one interesting part. Dirk Benedict Jr.'s ugly brother is slogging through the swamp, and he actually gets bit by a snake. Now, they work this into the film, where, you know, he has to give himself the snake bite cure in the 1970s. Again, people were stupid. Apparently, everybody thought it'd be a good idea. If, something bites you, you know, just take a knife and slit yourself open so you bleed out.
Right.
And then tie a bandana over the top of it so it's a tourniquet so you don't get blood flow to your extremity. Let's get some gangrene going on. So but the actor was actually slogging in the swamp. He got bit by an actual snake.
This is dedication.
And you can see him like swat it through, and then he falls down and everything. And they're like, oh, well, we don't have money to refilm. Here, actor got bit by a snake. I think I just did. Well, then do something about it.
Make it work.
So now he's cutting himself and he's bleeding out. And then, with a completely open wound, jumps back into the swamp. The most hygiene, friendly environment
There's
you can go to
no
with
bacteria
an open wound. You know, there aren't any these flesh-eating bacteria that's going to infect him. And amoebas aren't going to crawl in there and start digesting his testicles from the inside out. No, that's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Exactly.
And then the way he takes care of the gun. Listen, the very simple thing about a gun, if there's something in the barrel, much like when Bugs Bunny puts his finger on the end, it blows back. Mm-hmm. That kind of actually happens. So this guy is slogging through the swamp with this big freaking rifle.
Right.
Trying desperately to keep it out of the water, but then uses it as a crutch. The barrel halfway into the mud. So if he shoots this thing, it's going to blow back and blow his face off.
Yeah. Which he does end up using it.
He uses it, but it doesn't blow his face off, sadly.
No, so that's a good thing.
But the monster, just take it from them. I can't take it. I don't have enough alcohol in my system to be able to talk about this anymore.
Let's give the quick spoiler at the end, because some people will just not watch this film and they'll just go off of what we've said and enjoy every second of this podcast. So, essentially, the in-pit agent, the blonde lady that was captured to replace the other blonde lady that was dissolved in acid because she did not become a fish woman.
Because all monsters apparently are Aryan Brotherhood people at heart, because they never kidnap anything but blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls.
Yeah.
They want to keep the race pure.
Well, there you go. That explains a lot.
Sure, maybe that's why they thought he was a Nazi.
Maybe that's why. And see, you shed some more light on that theory. The thing is, she Did they show her get injected? I'm assuming she gets injected.
They didn't show it.
But we're just left to assume, because that's what happened all the other times in that
Right.
lab scene, because it's just
Twice.
the same crap over and over again. It seems like a million, but yeah,
Right.
twice is probably more accurate.
Right.
Puts her on the gurney. She's hovering above the water while the scientist is fighting the fish man, and they're staggering about and this and that. And then, anyway, for some reason, he pulls a net over the fish man to incapacitate him. And there's these two, what I thought were buoys, these two red buoys. And when he's actually, I guess they're supposed to be filled with the Zaat.
Yeah, and I
formula.
only got that because, again, I looked and like and read this on Wikipedia and everything like that. But it's that exactly what it is. They look like, I thought they were weights. I'm like,
Yeah,
you're going in there
for
to
the
be-
net or something. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and so he's grabbed because they were in the net.
they were attached to the net.
So it looked like they were buoys, but they're not. So he grabs them and he walks to the ocean.
Yeah, he goes
which
down a
convenient-
staircase first, clumsily.
Conveniently, the ocean, which has never been there before.
Right.
Because this is the middle of a swamp. Now, if you know anything about geography, swamps, not really next to oceans, unless it's like a mangrove, brackish swamp. So I'm like, no, this is like the Central Florida, clear water, Okefenokee swamp sort of stuff. A lot of springs and everything. It's nowhere near the ocean. And yet, somehow, this lab, which was in the middle of a swamp, is now also beachfront property. Extremely high demand for the location.
Exactly.
Because when you want a crazy lab, you want to have a nice view. Get out in the morning with your test subject's head in a jar, and you have a cup of coffee, watch the sun come up. The best part of waking up. Is that in your cup? I don't know. And so you just you sit there, and now it's on the ocean, which makes no sense. And
It doesn't make any sense.
so
It makes no sense.
He's stumbling out. He's going into the ocean.
Clutching this giant red,
drops one.
very phallic-looking container of Zaat material.
He drops one of the
drops
containers
one.
and doesn't pick it back up.
No, 'cause-
Assuming because he couldn't see it.
right.
And
Yeah.
Dirt Bandit shoots him.
They would have had to reshoot the scene, and you can't,
You can't have that.
Happen.
We only do one take.
Right. It's money.
Yeah.
It's a money issue.
So they do. Dirt Bandit shoots him, and it's like not even a blank. There's no even like where they draw flash fire. You just have him stand there, and you hear the sound effect of bang bang, and he misses a couple times, and he hits him, and this creature still goes into the ocean, clutching the one thing.
Yeah.
And then the IHOP waitress,
which has been rescued by the scientist, which I thought was dead, but actually wakes up, pulls her off the gurney, and then dies. Right? Or does he just black out? I don't know.
he died in the last little bit. He pulled her out of the water,
Yeah.
or off the water, then died.
Then he died.
And then she got up and stared at his corpse.
Right.
And it was so skillfully framed, you could almost see his forehead at the bottom of the screen.
Right. Yeah.
And so then she just sort of walks out, and
In sort of a zombie-like trance.
well, you don't even realize that
At first you don't, no.
And then she walks by Dirk Benedict, and he's oh my God, her name was Martha. Batman versus Superman. She was Batman's mom.
Well, there you go. That explains it all.
No,
that
she'd be
explains it all.
Aquaman's mom. I don't know. Either way.
Oh, yeah,
she
that
walks
makes
into the
sense.
ocean, and the guy who's still suffering from the effects of the snake bite is crying, pleading, "No, Martha, come back!" And she just walks into the ocean, and then it ends.
Yeah, it's sort of like she wasn't completely changed, but he had enough of a grasp on her from the serum, I'm assuming, that she was willing to follow him somehow, some sort of fish connection. I
Yeah,
don't know.
and because she hadn't been transformed, I'm sure she lasted a long time in the ocean.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that's what
I'm
they
sure
had
she
to cut.
did.
That's how they had to cut right there because 30 seconds later, her corpse would have washed up on the shore. Crabs crawling out of her mouth.
Right.
Shrimp eating her ears. It'd have been fine.
So it was one of those endings where the monster really essentially, he was shot, but he gets away. Kind of like at the end of The Creature from the Black Lagoon. There again, at the first film, they shoot him. He falls in the water, and you see his body floating to the bottom. Of course, he returns several films, a couple more films. And this was left kind of in that same vein where he could have easily come back because monsters always do, but
Right.
as we know, that sadly didn't happen.
Sadly is one word for it.
Right. So overall, what do you? Well, let me say one more thing. Most of these actors I had never heard of and never did much after that.
I think that one person was an extra in some sort of Santa's murder film in the late 80s, whatever it was.
Which one? Which actor are you referring to?
One of the extras.
Okay.
An extra was also an extra, uncredited, in whatever movie it was in the late 80s where Santa Claus... No, not Christmas Evil. The original ones where there's axe murderer dressed like Santa Claus.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it...
Whatever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
She was an extra in that. And an extra in this and an extra in that. A long and storied career. Watch out, Meryl Streep.
As extra work. As extra work goes, I mean, I guess it's a paycheck. Probably not a fat paycheck. What I discovered was the guy that played the sheriff, Sheriff Luke Krantz was the character's name. Paul Galloway was in a blaxploitation film called JD's Revenge, which is a somewhat popular, from that genre anyway, popular film from the 70s. He played a character known only as the Garage Man. I don't know if that means he was a mechanic or he lived in a garage. I don't know. I haven't actually seen JD's Revenge.
I'm assuming he just like the stereotypical white Southern racist.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too.
Because he played such a good stereotypical white Southern racist.
He did a good job, almost like it was second nature.
Almost like as if he was a stereotypical white Southern racist.
Right. So Paul Galloway, who played the sheriff, sadly he passed away in 2015 at the age of 92.
Dear God, why do these people live so long?
Hey man, I
to
don't
torture
know.
me?
And then the deputy sheriff was played by an actor known as Archie Valiere, or some fancy name, and he was apparently in Jaws 3D as well as about 6 other films where he just played bit parts. So he did a little more acting after this film wrapped. But anyway, what did you think overall? We know you didn't love it, but now that we've really kind of broken it down, dissected this film, what did you think about it?
I want to disembowel you.
So your opinion hasn't changed at all since the beginning of this review, then?
If anything else,
maybe it's worse.
It's become more bitter because I'm just having to relive it now.
That's half the fun, though, right?
You have a strange idea of fun, sir.
How long have you known me? Yes, I absolutely, I absolutely have a strange idea of fun. For anybody out there that's interested, there is a website dedicated to the film Zaat. It's www.zatmovie.com, or you can order the Blu-ray, T-shirts,
and
movie poster reproductions.
Z-A-A-T, not Zaat movie as if you're like a bad German accent.
Right.
Zaat the movie. No.
Right, the double A, Z-A-A-T. That is correct. And they also have a Facebook page, because apparently a few years ago they did several screenings in Florida when the popularity of this film sort of resurfaced. So anyway, if you're interested in that, you can check out those websites or order the movie or
do yourself a favor. And if you ever find yourself wanting to watch this movie, take a ball-peen hammer and smash your teeth in, because it'll be less painful than watching the movie.
So, on that note, for the Paid in Green Peppers podcast, I am Patrick Hite.
I am bitter.
He is bitter, and he is also Shane Aden. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Paid in Green Peppers.
Thank you.